Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of
Doctor It Up.
I'm Dr. Fee.
I'm Dr. Bob.
Dr. Pat.
So like and follow our Dr. It Up page, and please, we want to interact with you guys, so we welcome any and all comments. Thank you. Dr. Bobby, you want to talk about the benediction?
I will say, pass the plate.
Yeah, let's pass the plate.
We are Dr. It Up. Thanks for joining us.
Another experience with Dr. It Up. I am your number one host, Dr. Bob, and I also have the ladies with me. Lady,
The Pipet.
Right. I'm the main character, but whatever. All right.
And these are the temptations.
yes.
Y'all the background.
Wait, I'm David Ruffin, and these are the temptations.
Yes.
That's
Okay,
what it was.
now.
Okay.
All right. That's
Well, just so we know.
Well,
Well,
you guys can tell us who the main character is
Mhm.
in the comments below.
Well, I'm Dr. Felicia, Dr. Fifi.
And I'm Dr. Katrina, Dr. Kat.
And yours truly, Dr. Bob, we're excited for this one. We have an exciting new topic today to talk to you about, to share with you. And then you can share with us your input on this topic as well. Today's host will be Dr. Fee.
Absolutely. So, one thing that is certain about life, we've all run into it many times in our lives, is change, transition. We all at some point are going to be faced with some form of change that we have to go through. And so it's come up in the last couple of our discussions. So as we discussed, we thought this would be a nice topic to delve into next. So I'm going to dive right into the questions, if that's okay. All right. Well, either of you can share a pivotal moment of transition that you've experienced.
Who's going to go first?
Ladies first.
No, don't do ladies first, 'cause I'm still thinking.
Well, I'll just
Go ahead.
toss some ideas out there, right?
Yeah, go
So,
ahead. Yeah, because I have so many
could
transitions.
be a new job or job loss, grief, relocation, marriage or divorce, parenting, anything like that, becoming a parent. So,
I could say, when you say grief,
we're going to go straight to it.
I'm just saying, because I've had so many different jobs. And
Yeah.
But pivotal,
Yeah.
my mom. My
Yeah.
mom died because I didn't see it coming, But when she did, it changed who I was as a person. Like, I'm somebody else now. I didn't even feel like myself until 5 years later. So immediately, I felt like I was floating. Everything that mattered no longer mattered, because I just couldn't understand how the sun could come up the next day and my mom wasn't here. We're just gonna keep moving.
Yeah.
Like, we're just gonna keep living.
Yes.
That was a new thing for me. I had never experienced death on that level. My
Yeah.
grandmother had died,
Sure.
some years before, and that was a big deal for me too, because I couldn't even sit through her whole funeral. But your mom, and so I felt like my balloon strings were cut. How could the person that, quote unquote, created me no longer be here? And, I had never experienced that. So I just remember driving for years, not feeling like myself. I wouldn't even listen to music for the first year because I was like, how dare you laugh and your mom is dead?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I couldn't go into stores for Mother's Day. I didn't want to celebrate holidays. It really changed who I was. But at the same time, because my mom died of breast cancer, I knew in that moment I had to decide, was that going to be my life? So what made it so pivotal for me is, for one, the great loss, not even realize I can go on, but was able to. But then in that moment, I just decided, okay, my life is going to be different. Since nothing matters, I'm only going to concentrate on what I decide matters now, right? So I just became more bold with saying no, more bold with, I'm not doing that. Everything had to be a little more intentional in my life, because I thought about heredity. I'm like, okay, my mom died of breast cancer, so this could be my plight. And then eventually I came to, no, it's not. You know what I mean? It's what I say. I remember quitting my job, was out of work for 7 months, because I had decided at that point, no matter, even though people were calling me to hire me, I was like, nope, not going to take the job until it's a job that I want. Because again, I'm intentionally trying to live the life because I didn't know how long I had. We know about mortality, but when someone is literally gone, and you're like, well, then that means I can go too.
Yeah.
It just became, the thought now became reality. That I see it, so I know it can happen. So from there, I became a whole different person. I'm basically who I am today.
Yeah.
More bold, more. I have non-negotiables at this point in my life, and whenever I see something is happening that doesn't make me happy, and if it's not there to make me a better person, I abort. I leave. My mind be like, boop, boop, and people be like, well, you shouldn't flee. And no, I've learned that life is too precious because losing a mother, whole nother level. Father too, but for me, not the father, because my dad technically is still alive. My blood dad, of course, is not, but he didn't raise me. So yeah, so I would say that was a pivotal point in my life transition, but it was not only a transition for my mom and going through grief and death, but job as well. Because I got the best job, my favorite job I've ever had in my entire life. It was the best job ever, but I waited on it because I had already decided to be intentional. So people were calling me like, hey, you want this job, that job? And I would just say, thank you for your consideration, but no, I'm going to sit here even though I'm broke. I'm going to sit here even though I know where my money is coming from. Everything ran out because I'm going to wait, because I knew, again, all time is precious.
Yeah.
And I knew that I watched my mom struggle her entire life, because she did. And I was like, do you want that life? And no judgment on my mom, but I knew I didn't want to have the life that she had. But I felt, because I don't know her like that, because she has her own personal thoughts, but I felt like she had the life she had in some situations because she settled or thought that's all I can do, because how am I going to tell these people no? Well, I had decided I'm going to say no before I say yes. I'm going to say no, and you convince me to a yes, or the answer remains no. And that's how I lived my life. And that was a pivotal transition from grief to being somebody else, and from not having a job for 7 months to going into the best job, because I waited till everything aligned with what I said and not settled for what I thought I could get because I thought I wasn't good enough for what I asked for. So that's mine.
Absolutely.
Wow, I get that. I get that. When you love someone dearly, they are truly a part of you. They're a part of your thought process. They are a part of your loving process, and then that gets taken away from you in a moment. Essentially, you are different. You are different,
and I've never been the same.
Has been taken away.
For sure.
Especially having lost both of my parents before. I totally get that. I don't know if it impacted me as I'd say severely as it impacted you, because I had a different set of thoughts. When my mom passed away, for example, it was after I had gotten married. I already had kids, so I had a responsibility to others. So even though I felt like I couldn't go forward with me, I felt like I had to go forward for them because they were dependent on me.
Yeah.
Right.
And I couldn't let them down.
You couldn't fall apart.
I couldn't
Not
fall
the way you
apart.
probably
I couldn't
wanted to.
afford fall
Right.
apart.
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't afford to fall apart.
Yes.
So
Makes sense.
I just kind of held it together. But I mean, whenever you have a parent who has taken care of you and loved and nurtured you for an entire life, then it's difficult when you lose them. When you do become something different. It's almost like, when you think about it, at least when I think about it, it's almost like a rite of passage, because we
to a club you really don't want to be a part of.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Yes.
We know it's coming.
Yeah.
In a sense,
But when you think about it, you look at your parents and their generation, their generation, and you think those are the older people. You never think in your mind that one day you're going to be one of those older people.
The older people.
And that's going to be your responsibility, not just to the people who are depending on you in your house, but also the people who depend on your leadership outside of your house. When they look at you and see a person that is older or more mature, they expect a certain thing. But really, they need a certain thing.
They do.
In order for our society to continue to function. Now, as it relates to the transition I want to share that is still difficult, is retirement.
Talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Yes.
You
And
would
you're
be-
fresh.
Very fresh.
Yeah,
What? May, June, July, 4 months in.
4
Yeah.
months in,
Yeah.
4 months in, and I tell you, I have been working all of my life.
Mhm.
I grew up in rural Mississippi on a cotton plantation.
Mhm.
You worked hard basically as soon as you could walk.
Yeah.
Everyone had to pull their load, so to speak.
Mhm.
And I've been working hard for most of my life, and now to not have a job, not
A plan for the next day?
I mean, I have to make a plan every day now. I mean, when people ask what are you gonna do tomorrow, I'm like, I don't know. What am I gonna do?
Yeah.
What's the purpose now?
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, for me, is I have a business that I'm pouring into,
Mm-hmm.
and that gives me purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm fortunate that I don't have to be concerned about the next paycheck
Mhm.
Right.
or how's the next piece of money coming in, how will the bills get paid. I'm fortunate. I am very, very fortunate in that.
You're free.
I am.
Period. As it
I'm
should
not
be.
used to being free.
Yeah.
I know.
I gotta get my mind right to be free.
I
And
know.
it sounds crazy,
Mhm.
but if you've been a slave to society, a slave
To a 9 to 5.
the system,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
all of your life,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough being free.
Yeah.
Think about it. Even the Egyptians, when Moses freed them,
Mm-hmm. They like, well, what we do now?
they wanted to go back.
Go back to
Someone
what was
wanted to go
familiar.
Same for slavery. Same for slavery. Yeah.
Man, it's difficult.
Yeah.
They went back. Can I work
It's
still?
difficult. Now, I have not gotten to the point where I want to
You
go
wanna
back.
go back?
Absolutely not.
Look, NASA ain't been that good to me. But
Not a day.
it is difficult. But I'm working it out. I'm working it out.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about the workout.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, something I'll add to the grief conversation. I didn't know we were going to dive right into grief, but it's just one of those
one
things.
of those. Mm-hmm.
So similar to you guys, I lost my mom pretty early though, and so that was definitely. I was not because she was young and I was young. I don't think that I was equipped yet with the coping skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so that transition was interesting in that I kind of just powered through the first, phase of that. And then things kind of come crashing down at some point when you haven't handled grief in a healthy way. And so grief is a transition that's like, it's interesting in that it's a transition, but it's the permanence of it. That's like that. And when you describe feeling like your balloon had been cut, we've had this
just
conversation
floating.
that the way I described it, I heard Melissa Ford describe it in the same terms that I used 20 something years ago, which I felt untethered. I felt like I was just floating. The person that brought you into the world is not here anymore. And so you can feel kind of out of sorts. And so that's a transition that to me, grief is one that's yet unfolding. We come a certain distance with it as time goes on, but I heard Chris Rock say one time, it's something you don't get over, you just get used to it.
Period.
And I thought
the new
words
normal
were spoken. And so that's grief is just the permanence of it is what makes it an interesting transition, but it changes you, as you both said. It changes how you are and who you become to, we become the versions of ourselves we have to be to survive whatever the moment is. And so, but thank y'all for sharing that.
My last comment.
Yeah.
For me, because it's like we all dealt with it a little differently. And I was like, no, I'm not doing anything else. But that really was because I've dealt with tragedy and other trauma in my life. But when my mom got sick, I was like, what's the worst that could happen? That was the worst that could happen. So when she died, I was like, there's nothing that's going to hurt worse than this. So go ahead and leap off the edge. And that's what I did. Because let's say if I was ever to be homeless or if I was ever to be sick, it don't matter. My mom died. Right. So to me, that was the worst, like heart-wrenching thing that could happen. So if I can get through that, I can get through anything. So go ahead and take some risk, child, because this is this one life right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just really traumatized me so much that it made me a whole nother, like a phoenix.
Yeah.
Like everything had to go away. I had to rise a different way.
Yeah.
Just to cope with that. That was so hard mentally for me. I never dealt with anything like that.
I think I was 21. And so you're kind of a new adult.
Yeah, I was like 39.
So I was just old enough to make bad decisions.
Yeah. but an adult.
During a very pivotal time. It was just not a time to be making. And I just remember making decisions because very similar to what you said. It's like my mom's going, so like,
I got to figure this out.
Who cares?
There you
like
go.
I felt like that. And so I had to kind of right that ship, with the Lord. But it can really, those major pivotal transitions in all our lives, whatever they may be, they have the ability to really, propel us towards our destiny, the one that God has for us, or they can really, throw you off your square.
They can.
So it's very important to be wise, seek wise counsel, and keep your hand in the Lord's hand, whatever the transition may, good or bad. It could be like we said earlier, marriage or having a baby, which are those are happy things, but they require a lot of you, and they pull on you to grow in ways that you have yet to experience. A new job, same thing.
Right.
So it's happy times, but a transition is definitely afoot. So yeah. So thank you guys. Any more y'all want to say about that? Okay, well, can you share a time when you navigated a transition well, and a time maybe you navigated not so well? We kind of touched on a little bit here,
Navigated
but
well.
there may have been some, decisions may have been made that better ones could have been made, or times you really like, oh yeah, I knocked that out of the park.
Well, I would say it's a little tricky because what you think is well today, when you look back on it, in the future, you think, man, what was I thinking?
Right.
But right now, I think to answer that, it would be the same transition, but two sides of one coin. Number one, with retirement, I knew that I was going to do it. It's not a surprise.
Yeah.
I wanted it.
Yeah.
I begged for it for years. I knew I was going to do it. And while I prepared myself financially for it, I didn't really, and I guess I didn't know how, but I didn't really prepare my brain for it.
Absolutely.
So my brain tells me, you should be doing something. You should be going to work. But, my life is that I've left that behind. So right now I feel like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good. But, 4 months from now, I might look back and say, man, I should have done better. But one thing I do try to focus on is, no regrets. No regrets. I live life. I try to enjoy every single day. I try to enjoy every single moment. And while I know I don't get everything perfect, I do know that what I have here, I'm enjoying. And I'm going to enjoy life no matter what it brings, no matter what. That's my commitment to me. I feel like I was blessed with this life, and I've been here as many years as I have. And I think it's my duty to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that every single day. It's an excellent day.
Excellent always.
So that's
Excellent always.
So that's the so that would be the one that'd be not so well because you wasn't prepared, or
Well, it could be.
so that's the answer both, right?
That's still out on it.
Right. So that could be the answer to
That's the answer to both.
To both.
Yeah. Coin. Yeah.
Okay. I still don't know yet.
Well, something I was gonna say about any of these transitions we encounter. I'll talk about becoming a mom, and to your point, in any of these transitions we encounter, even if they're positive, like retirement or getting a new job or becoming a mom or becoming a spouse, like you have all these, hopes and plans,
expectations,
and you have what you think is going to happen, but there's the experiential part of it, like walking the thing out, right? So those are positive things, right? But actually getting into the situation, you start learning all of the deficits, the gaps, the stuff that like, I thought I was ready, but there's so much for me to learn. I remember only ever wanting to be a mom. And just when I was the happiest person on earth when I got pregnant. I had a happy pregnancy. You know, I just was glowing. I look back at those pictures like, girl, you look a mess. I was so swollen.
You were glowing on the inside.
My grandmother was like, you were just so big. You just look miserable. I was like, well, thanks, grandma. But I look back at those. I was pregnant in the summer. I was just sweaty and just swollen, feet, ankles out. But you couldn't tell me anything. I was so excited to become a mom, and then had my daughter, and again was excited, but entered the exhaustion of being up all night. And so what I'll say about that was I remember being up with her one particular night. I was like, this child is not going to sleep and I am on zero. And I just remember having a moment of acceptance. Like, this is where we are now. She's not going to be this size, but for this amount of time.
Oh, yeah.
And just embrace it, accept it. And so that totally shifted my exhaustion too. Like, we just up. And so I would have fun with her in those late night hours. And so I think that's a part of transitioning too, is it's also one of the steps of grief is acceptance.
Yes.
Acceptance will make things go a lot. It's not that it's not hard, but it makes it a lot more easy to walk through. So I'll say that about a transition that I handled pretty well. What didn't I handle so well?
I know. Well, let me tell you why I didn't handle well.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, because I can't think of one. I think I handled everything well. I'm just gonna be honest, but I need to be real with myself.
We're gonna powwow about that. And
okay, so I'm gonna tell you something because I'll be like you say, no regrets. I just don't have any, and I probably correlate that with but I could still give myself some constructive feedback. So when you talked about well, I'm not gonna say your child name, but your child, so I was like, you didn't say it. I ain't gonna say it. But I thought about marriage, right? Because even as a child, anybody that knows me, like really knows me, right from my Nene days, they'll be like, she said she was never going to get married, never have a child, because I never wanted those things. I've never, that didn't seem like happiness to me. Happiness was be by yourself and make your own decisions and only consider yourself. That was happiness to me. But I ended up getting married, right? And I would say like the first year was fine because we were basically like roommates, in my mind. This is my narrative. I'm not going to speak for my spouse, but my ex-spouse. But we were, I felt like we were roommates. We were rocking and rolling. We merged our friends. We had a good time. We were doing our thing. But then that second year, it was like, oh, you're married. You got to consider other people's feelings. You have to consider other people in what you do and don't do. And I woke up like, absolutely not. Like, this is why you said you didn't want to be married. And so I did not handle that transition well. Like, I'm telling you, I'm not going to give details, but I did not, no, don't even go there. No cheating. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But I went back into my shell because I'm a very introverted, they say ambivert, right? So, but I'm, for the most part, an introverted person. And so you have to be on when you're married. You can't go sit in a room and lay in there all day in the bed with the door closed, not come out and socialize when your spouse comes home. Like, you cannot, you should not. Well, I'm not even going to say that. I'm just going to say it doesn't seem like that would be a healthy situation.
Yeah.
And it was not for me, but that's what I did. And then I had to make a decision, like, are you going to step up to the plate for this? Or are you going to do your own thing? And with where I was, the maturity of me and all that, I was like, oh, I need to go. Yeah. And so I did not handle that particular transition well. I think I handled well how I left, but the transition of becoming married was not well. I didn't do that well. I could honestly say that.
Well, I will say this, and I'm glad you said what you said, because when you're going through change, you have to be honest with yourself.
Yes.
If you want to come out on the other side feeling anywhere close to normal or okay, you got to be honest with yourself.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Listen, I see transition as an opportunity to right the ship, so to speak. You're going to something different, and you're in that moment where you can formulate what that different is for you.
Yeah.
And as you decide, make these decisions on what you're going to be on the other side of that transition, you need to be honest with yourself. Be honest with who you are. I guarantee you'll be happier with your decisions that you made through the transition. Other people may not understand it. They may not like it, but don't you care. You focus on what makes
Come
you
on
happy.
now.
To
Yep.
thine own self be
Mhm.
true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Honesty is big, and I realized that, like I said, losing my mom when I lost her, I was just kind of out here making very grown-up decisions without the tools to be doing that, and one of which was getting married young. And so everything about the way that you sort of relate to another person is just it's just what you learned up to that stage. And
Yeah.
and so I will say I did my best as a young wife, but there's so much you just don't have or just don't know. And so, and even undertaking such a monumental relationship at that age, I just was not equipped for that.
Mhm.
I did the best I knew to do, but there are certain things that I certainly now, in retrospect, would have done differently.
Mhm.
You know, when everything kind of bothers you, everything is like, you know, we have this concept of what's fair and what's right, and
Right.
like fairness is such a like, what does that even?
That's
What does that
objective.
mean?
That's
What is
objective.
fairness?
Very much.
That's like no, you know,
Hmm.
and God gives us very specific instructions for how to navigate marriage. And if
Hmm.
you know, we were speaking earlier about that being a covenant that you make with your spouse and with
Mhm.
God, and then not honoring that in whatever way. You know,
Mhm.
the big hot button ones are infidelity, but
Right.
it's not even about that. It's just about going to God with your challenges versus, you know, other people or other, you know, whatever the case may be. So I will say, in one sense, I think that I tried my best, but that was,
I
you know,
did.
in retrospect, as a, you know, more mature woman now, I definitely made some false steps in trying to navigate being a new wife, and you know, things I may not have been happy with, not taking to the Lord, but taking to, you know, my cousin or whoever. You know, I gotta, you know.
Right. But you
But
know,
anything you complain about, you're feeding that energy
yes.
into the thing, and God, again, God gave us a game plan, and so that's one I didn't handle so well, for
Well,
sure.
you know, like I said, I did it. I think I went into it wrong, but I think I left it fine because I was open. I was honest. It may not have been of what, you know, what the person wanted to hear, but I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do it anymore. Yes, you can go to marriage counseling, but why would I fight for something I don't want to
Mhm.
fight for? You deserve whoever you desire. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I can't be that person. So you really gonna struggle with me? Like to me, it
Mhm.
was like let the person go because
Yeah.
if you really love them, right? And you know, I went through a depression period because I knew I hurt that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so people think, oh, she just want to go and be free and frolic. No, I literally the transition period of that, I was literally depressed because I'm like, I know what I did. I know what I did. I knew I went into something thinking I was ready. This person was, I wasn't. That's hurtful,
Mhm.
especially when someone loves you. And so I knew what I did.
Yeah.
But I also knew me too.
Yeah.
And I knew I am hell to live with if I'm not happy. Like you already know. And I knew I was going to torture this person
Mhm.
because I wasn't mature enough to really control myself at that time. You know, I'm much better now, I will say.
And I'll
Anyway.
piggyback a little bit again on the honesty thing. The honesty thing
Yeah,
is so important.
it is.
And where my Achilles heel with that I've come to realize, you know, and it's been a long time since I came to this discovery was, excuse me, I couldn't be honest with other people or my spouse because I wasn't honest with myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was suppressing what I really felt and what I really thought,
Right.
thinking that I'm doing it for the greater good, thinking that I'm, you know, go along to get along and all those things. When that's not what God said, bring everything to me, and that's you have to lay yourself bare.
You
And
do.
so if you're not saying, oh, well, this hurt my feelings, or this made me unhappy, or whatever, or this gave me all this joy, whatever the thing is, I just wasn't even honest enough with myself. So there's no being honest with another person if you can't
Right.
face yourself. So that was something it took me some years to, because I was just so good at stuffing my feelings, like from
I'm
grief
not.
to whatever, just to, you know, got to keep the ship moving. Like we got to, you know,
Yeah.
got to keep it going. And so that was a big one. Okay, now I got to get to know myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be honest with me, and then I can grow in relationship, whatever that relationship may be, professional, personal, you know, that sort of thing. So.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I listen, I'm thinking about this transition thing, and I think it's important that we point out, at least I think, transition doesn't stop at that breakup. It didn't stop
No.
when you,
Oh no.
you know, gave that divorce papers. It didn't stop
It's process.
when your mom passed.
Right.
No.
It didn't stop in that moment. A part of transition is where you land on the other side of that change. And I think it's important that we don't get stuck at that front end
Right.
of transition,
Right.
and where a lot of people get stuck and they get depressed and they can't move forward. And I just want to encourage people to think about transition as a two-sided coin, if you will. I know I've used that in a different way earlier, but it's not just the breakup. It's not the heartbreak. It's not just the front end of it. True transition also includes where you're ending up.
Yeah.
You know, and then coming out of that situation. So focus on coming out and what do you want to see on the other side of that change, on the other side of that hurt, on the other side of that loss. Think about where you want to end up and focus on making those decisions that are going to develop the best situation for you on the back end of transition.
Agree.
For sure. And I will say that certain transitions, to your point, Dr. Bobby, I'm continuing to get revelation about, even though they may have happened, quote unquote, happened some time ago, is when you really get to a point of reflection, like true reflection, you start to learn some things. And so, as Katrina says, all that lesson gonna keep showing up until you get it.
Right.
She says it all the time.
Yeah, because I be like, I don't want to learn this again, Lord. So tell me what I did.
I'm good.
Because this is about the third time.
Let me be exempt. Can I test out?
Thank you. I be meditating for hours, like I'm gonna get it this time because I can't do this again.
So, but understanding that it's a lot of times it's not just about the transition itself, but what did it come to teach us? What did it come to show us? In what ways was it meant to develop us for the next leg of our journey? Sometimes we get so hyper focused on the moment. I've been guilty of that for certain. And so that leads me to the next question, which is, have you ever faced a transition that you thought you just might not get through? It was just so difficult. Like you couldn't see your way clearly. And for me, a couple of those were certainly grief, because it's like, when do I, when does this end? There's no like end date. There's no end in sight. How do I get through it? How do I push past? And then the other for me was experiencing job loss, because, and I think the thing that those two things have in common are specifically just the sustained nature of the suffering of it. And for me, it became very important to make the distinction between, yes, I trust God, but this is hard. This is I want to cry sometimes.
The hardest.
This is, and understanding I can bring that to God. I don't have to be like, G.I. Jane about it.
No,
like it's not showing a lack of faith
God.
because I have my eyes well with tears or whatever. It's just a part of it. And He created us. He gave us these tear ducts.
He already know. Yeah,
He gave us these hearts and these spirits.
And let it flow.
And a part of His loving us and is Him wanting us to come to Him with this stuff. And so those were the ones that were, from my experience, just very much like, oh gosh, I just don't see the end in sight, but yet I trust you though. What did Job say? Though you slay me,
period.
Yet I trust you.
Period.
And he told Paul, my grace is sufficient. That sometimes that thorn is just gonna linger. He's not gonna take it. But again, with God, it's never about, He's not like, in heaven doing it like, let me see what I can throw at her. It's about
absolutely not.
It's developing us for the next thing. And so that's so important. When you understand that there's a purpose to everything that we face, every transition, nothing is just happenstance.
No, nothing just happens.
It's for a purpose. And then elevating our thoughts to that level, it gives you hope. There's come on, theologian. there's a scripture that talks about we don't mourn as those without hope. You know what I mean? And that's go ahead, no, talk about it.
Well, you know how I feel about hope.
Well, knowing.
Yeah,
There's
there you
a
go.
knowing.
Because hope is fine if you're depressed and you need to get to that
The
level.
Bible speaks to hope, though.
It
and
does. It
it's-
says
yeah.
hope all the time. It says believe all the
Sure.
time. I feel the way about belief. too.
Knowing is next level for sure.
Period. And that's what I'm trying to ascend to,
Yeah.
the knowing of it or whatever. But I get it with the hope. But we did have this conversation
Mhm.
walking.
Yeah.
Because I was like, where's God? Tell him everything.
Yeah.
He knows anyway.
He already knows.
So what you trying to hide? You can be like, today is not a good day.
Right.
God, I'm ready to cuss this person out.
Yeah.
I'm ready to cut this person off, but I know what the consequence is going to be,
Mhm.
but I want to do that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And so, like, can you stop me?
Yeah.
Can you do something to stop me? Because this is literally how I talk to God, but like, do something. Like, give me another thought. And then the next thought in my head gives me something else to do. But there's been times when I didn't do that. And I would just go do whatever, and then I have to suffer the consequences.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, okay, I need some help. Okay, well, just tell God. And so I'll tell God, in that moment. And the same thing, he has gotten me through a lot of transitions too, because back to grief, back to mom, but it's so many transitions with grief, right? So I feel like the podcast is about grief, even though I know it's not
it's
grief and marriage.
circling.
But I'm just going to say, because remember, I was getting my doctorate at the time.
Yeah.
And when my mom died, I was like, what's the point? Because my mom can't see me cross the stage. Like, what we, so I stopped. And not understanding in that moment what that was going to mean. I was, prolonging that. And if I had to stay out for a certain amount of time, then I would have to apply again, all of this and that. But I tell you, it did not matter because my mom was gone. And if my mom hadn't, and that's another thing. Well, anyway, my mom came to me in the middle of the night and it was like, Renee, like she said, get up, get moving. And I'm like, it was her voice. I immediately got up, wrote my last chapter, was defending. Within 3 months, I was a doctor. But, I went very quickly because she told me to do that. And also because I started to open up my mind, which is another transition I made, and another lesson or another thing where nothing just happens. My mom's death also took me to the next level spiritually.
Absolutely.
Because then I understand, I got more access to my mom now than I ever had. If I wanted to talk to her, she was in Texas for a long time. I was in, in Atlanta, Georgia. And then we went to get her to move, here with us. But now I could talk to her. She's here right now. I feel her energy, because when I say her name, she comes. Or when I feel her, she comes. But anyway, so I like to say that took me to another level spiritually. That was a transition too, because I started hearing things. And then I started meditating. And then I started doing research, because mind you, I was off work 7 months. So I'm sitting in the bathtub. That became my obsession with bubble baths too. But I'm sitting in the bathtub and I'm getting all these words, and then so I'm learning, okay, so now this spiritual thing is real, and I know I'm feeling her now. And so from that point on, do I ignore that and say, okay, just my mom, let it go? Or do I look more into that? So I actually made a transition during that time to ascend spiritually, and I'm still going through that now. But that was a transition for me too, because now I started hearing things. Now I could definitely hear my mom. And then I have other people that passed away started to visit me, my dreams and stuff. And I thought, whoa, so that opened something up for me as well. So the purpose of her leaving also is for me to ascend. So
That's interesting.
that's a lot, but whatever. That's my life.
The one thing that kind of sticks with me out of what you just said, Dr. Kat, is the ascension, the getting better. I would say it that way for me. Transitions, I think those are opportunities. Opportunities to move forward in something. Opportunities to increase something, to improve something. It's an opportunity to be a better form of you.
Yes.
And yes, it may be an opportunity to test your faith in something. It may be an opportunity to grow your faith in something. But it's an opportunity. You spoke about the Bible earlier, and I think about Job. He went through some major transitions.
Oh my gosh.
But it was an opportunity to show that he had faith.
Yeah.
And I think he proved that he had it. And on the other side, he was given more than he lost.
Than he had before.
Right.
He was given more than he lost. So it's, I think it's an opportunity. Transition is an opportunity to improve something, to correct something, to make it better.
Right.
It could be exciting, very much exciting. Because except for that particular certain things about grief, were not like fun for me. But when I leave a job and go to another job, leave a state, go to another state, you're like, okay, well, how am I going to do this differently? Like you have a clean slate in some situations, and you're like, I can be different.
Yeah,
you know, like you go on a new job, I'm gonna be quiet this time. I ain't gonna say nothing. I ain't gonna, you know. But then you go over there and run your mouth, do it again. But anyway, but I've done that in most jobs. I'll go in and I'll say, okay, well, how am I going to do this differently? What lessons did I learn from the last job? So now on this job, I probably won't go down that path if I do this differently. Now, if I do go down that path, I also understand that, again, like we were talking about lessons, I probably didn't get that lesson. And that's when I get to that job and I show up and it be the same situation. I'd be like, God, not doing this again now. Okay, so I'm going to stay here until I learn this. And so my next transition, I can move further along because I actually learned the lesson here. Again, because nothing just happens.
Yes.
Even though I went to another job, so everything will be great. If I'm in the same situation, learning the same lesson, that's good for me because it's God saying, no, because what I got for you, you're not going to be able to enjoy it because you haven't cleared this trauma.
Yeah.
So I did give you what you asked for. I gave you a better job. You know, I gave you, better pay, this and that. But I'm going to give you a whole other set of issues that are still going to be dealing with the same one you have not learned. Because, ma'am, I done placed you here and you think you're happy, but you're not going to be truly happy till you learn this. And then, but with the next transition, though, if I've learned it, it will be different and it will be another step to happen.
And it's moving you closer to the destiny that he has for you and what he's created for you
Absolutely.
to do. All
like
that.
What we're doing now.
And so I just wanted to make the point that, sometimes in the middle of transitions that are difficult, we lose sight of that fact that they are there to grow us. But when we look to nature or what God has created, or really anything that's come into being, there was a process for that to happen. And so, but God showed us through his creation that, an egg becomes a bird or whatever. A caterpillar becomes a butterfly. The seed has to burst through, has to go through like a travail to burst through the ground to become whatever it was intended to be. So,
which may look like struggle.
That mimics what we look like, and it is a struggle. It is a struggle for a seed to break through a hole,
and it looks like struggle, but it needed to happen.
For a little baby to break through a shell to be, these things look, and anything around us, anything you put your eyes on, there was a transition for this table to become, for the shirt that you have on to be made, a movie to be made. There's like it's not easy work. It's not an easy lift. These are heavy lifts, but certainly worth it in the end. And so,
Now, if I may, I'll insert this.
Yes, sir.
I believe there's nothing new under the sun.
No,
absolutely not. Nope.
So I think it's important that we pay attention to the transitions others go through and learn from what they do.
For sure.
And I mean, you could even call them mistakes, but learn from the decisions that others made.
Right.
You don't always have to.
No, you don't.
Buy your own sins.
Oh, no, you don't.
Something to learn.
I would rather not in most things.
Absolutely. Learn from others as well.
Yeah.
So just pay attention to the changes you see people go through, and when they share something with you. Sometimes they share it with you because they needed to get it off their chest. But as you consider it and think about it, maybe they shared it with you so that you can think about your life. So that you can apply that situation or that lesson to your life and learn from it. So just think about that when you're listening to others or going through your transition. Just know that you can find a lesson. My dad used to tell me a fool can teach you something.
Yes.
For sure.
And do a lot.
Absolutely.
What to do and what not to do.
It is important to pay attention. And I can look back, as an older, a more mature woman now on moments where, that was God sent that to steer me in a different direction. I just didn't quite get it. Or that person said something to me that was supposed to steer me in a different direction. And sometimes our youthful naivete or, we think we know it all. We think we're Teflon Dons as young people, like nothing can, but, sometimes you got to learn fat meat is very greasy.
Fat meat greasy.
It is on both sides. It's greasy. And so it would be better not to have to walk every little thing out. But the blessing of it is, Katrina always says, God uses all of it. Nothing is lost. Nothing is
for the greater good.
Yeah, for the greater good.
Those who love the Lord.
So speaking of being
All to his
young
purpose.
and not as young now, how do you respond to change now versus when you were just a few years younger?
Well, I'm excited about change
Okay.
because I feel like every time change come about, it's like, here's a new opportunity. You know, if change happens to me, it's really like an awakening or new knowledge that I didn't know before, you know, or a new opportunity to do something different because it always leads to something else. You know, everything works to the, you know, greater good.
Yeah.
So if it comes along my path, then that's an opportunity. So I look at it that way. And because I know a lot of people, and this is, you know, I hear this a lot, especially with Leos, right? They'll be like, Leos don't like change. I love it. I don't know where that came from. Absolutely love it. Because give me an exit, I'm taking it. Give me a way of doing something different, I'm going to do it. Because I learn more, I do more. Now, younger, you know, change was scary because I hadn't lived enough life to know that it always works out. But now that I know it does, that's my new perspective on change. Like, bring it on. You get a new boss, all right, cool. I mean, stuff about to change. Now I can be like, I'm not doing this. I never laughing, but listen, I don't do this. I don't know what they told you, but I don't do this. You know, or you could go in and say, okay, I didn't have the nerve to ask for this, but now I have the opportunity to ask for this. You, let's say you lose a car, okay, now I can get a better one. You know, you lose a place where you live, I can get a better place to live. You know what I'm saying? Like if you look at it like I didn't lose anything, I gained an opportunity, then that's the way I look at change now as in my older, as being older. I wasn't saying my older years, but no, man, I got a long way to go. Being
more
older,
experience, more experience.
however you want to say it. Oh, but I look at it as opportunity now instead of losing. Change means good, regardless of what it is. It means good.
Well, I think in our immaturity, we look at transition and change, especially when we're young, as a roadblock, as a stumbling block. I think it takes living, it takes experience, it takes knowing that things are going to be all right.
Yeah.
You know, it takes a hope.
Seeing that it has been all right, you know.
Absolutely.
That's experience, you know what I mean?
We say everything I came through or everything I went through, I got through.
Right. But you got to get through some things to know that you will get through. Absolutely. If you've never gotten through anything, it'll be daunting. Like, I'm not going to make it through.
And so I think it's expected and probably a healthy transition as a young person to look at the front end of transition as a major change that maybe it's going to be difficult or maybe you won't even get through it. But as an experienced person who has gone through some things, who have come through those things and landed all right on the other end, I think it's important that we grow and mature and look at transition from the back end rather than from the front.
Did you die?
Did you die?
Right.
And what can I learn from it?
It's so crazy that you say it. Did you die? It's funny because when my mom had passed away, I had another friend. When his dad passed away, a little bit after my mom passed away, and we were talking about it one day because we had watched each other go through it. And he was like, you know, it's funny because now the way I look at everything, it's like, did you die? Because, you know, you lost a parent. You're like, that's the worst thing. Yeah. Did you die? Well, if you didn't die, keep it moving. It's not that serious. Right. And when he said that, I said, that's funny because I didn't word it that way. But in my head, I would always look like, oh, well, my mom died. So I went through that. But he said it like, well, did you die? And so it's funny when you said those words, those were his words. And it's funny. So now, moving forward, I say that to myself. Well, did you die? Right. Okay, well, then keep it moving. Keep it moving. It is not that serious if you did not die, because that means you have purpose because you got up the next day. Absolutely. That means you have purpose because now you get to move forward because you may be mad. Every limb working, every faculty is working. You're not sick. Move forward. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you have the opportunity and ability to move forward because what? You didn't die.
That's right. So, I would have fainted, but I believe to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living.
And the new day, the new day is a start over.
Right. It's a start over.
It is.
And again, opportunities. These transitions bring opportunity.
And now opportunity, I think, as we get older and mature, becomes exciting and we're happy about it. And then, so that's how we think differently. Because I'll tell you, growing up, it was scary to me.
Absolutely.
Life can be scary.
Yeah.
But I like that now, that new day is an opportunity. I look at it as For every new day you get, that's a present from God.
Yep.
So what will you do with your present from God? Will you just squander it and worry about the past? Or will you take it and utilize it to the best of your ability today? And I think that's a decision we all have to make every day. And I choose to make the best of it. I choose no regrets. Look, I'm going to make the best of this day. And it forms and shapes my motto for my life. Excellent every day.
Excellent always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be like, making it work. Making it work. I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. I'm going to make it work. And that's just what it is. And so to me, it just brings it all together in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I think being more mature, you realize it's not the end. It's not the end of the world. Nobody died, hopefully. And so for me, you know, going through transitions, it's more like I go through it now, looking at the higher purpose of it. I'm not so bogged down in the you know, the mire of it. I try to elevate my thinking, like, okay, God, you know, this is tough, but what is it that you're trying to show me? What are you trying to teach me? Or if I don't know, then I trust you anyway. I trust that this, you know, this is going to bring about some sort of change that you have in store for my life. So that's the biggest difference for me now versus being younger, and not even necessarily that much younger. These are still ever evolving revelations that, you know, I'm coming into.
Well, let me throw this one at you before you go to your next question, because I love these types of
I think that's our
conversations, but the Bible tells us that things would be better for us in our latter years. Well, if they're going to be better than the previous years, something has to change.
Absolutely.
You?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Change should be looked upon as something to get you to your better.
And that's exciting.
Yes,
that's exciting.
It is
to me.
exciting.
That's exciting.
It is exciting.
You guys, if it came up, well, let me go ahead and do this because I know it's going to work out for my greater good, which means it's going to get me closer.
Yeah.
But then I also, by you saying it's going to be better, it's what you say it's going to be. You know what I mean? I hate when people say it is what it is. No, it's what you say it is. You know, and if you know everything is working for your greater good, then whatever you're going through or whatever the change is, you already know what God promised as the end.
For sure.
So this has to happen. So it's not like, oh, why did this happen to me? You're not exempt. Nobody's exempt from anything.
Yeah.
So since I'm not exempt and this change has come, then this transition is going to just get me a step further. And so that's, you know, makes you stay positive with it. And that's where excitement comes in.
And we can't take the old version of ourselves into
a
new situation.
And don't want to. Because that old version, she was a chump.
And that requires a process.
She was a pushover when she was little. Where they do that now?
Like, you can't take the same old person who was making the same decisions
or
just thinking the same old way or whatever. You won't sustain what is next.
You can't, you'll lose it. Because it's not like God won't give it to you. He will. And it might be another lesson just to show you, oh, you're not ready. So, and who would want to get it and then not be ready?
Absolutely.
I want it when I'm ready.
When I'm ready. And the thing is, it's like whatever that transition is, you know, involved in that transition for you, it's going to give you the tools, equip you with the tools you need for the next.
Absolutely.
The next steps. Okay, thank y'all for that. I'll ask this one. We probably already touched on it a little bit, but I'll ask it plainly.
So this is the last one?
No, we have a couple more.
Well, no, we need to
keep pushing.
No, I said we could make it the last one and then move to the next segment and end it. So it won't be too long for the first one.
Okay, then let me see. I'm gonna pick the last one then.
Episode 2. I'll pick a good one for that.
That's what I'm looking.
Now you got to pick a really good one.
I think we've already kind of touched on, really, just in our conversation, touched on all of these a little bit.
All right.
But I will say, I'll end with this one. What advice would you give someone who is struggling with the transition that they're navigating?
Well, I would say, first of all, just know that things are going to be all right. Give yourself permission to go through this transition. Don't tell yourself, I can't do this, or, you know, I wouldn't even say I don't want to do this, because know that as you go through transitions, it improves on who you are. And in order for you to become a better you have to go through something. You know, through transition, my faith increased. Through transition, I'm able to deal with anything because my faith increased. And I became a better me. I've learned how to look at things differently. I've learned how to conduct myself differently because I've gone through some things. And I've learned not just more about me, but more about who God is, more about who He is to me, and more about what He can do for me. So as I've gone through that transition, and as you go through transition, I would say, just let it go. Let it go. Let go of what used to be. Embrace what is happening for you and make the best of it every day.
So I will piggyback off of that because I'm going to say something similar, but it's perspective, because you basically talked about perspective.
Yeah.
And it's how you go into it. If you go into it thinking it's going to be bad, then it will be. And if you go into it thinking, oh, this is going to be a new opportunity and it's going to be great, then it will be. And I always say, because I remember going through a lot the last 2 years before we transitioned back to Atlanta, and I was hanging on by a thread mentally, and this was a transition. But I remember, and I saw this, and let me know where it came from in the comments if you can, because I don't remember the lady. I remember it was a white lady with blonde hair. But she said, and I remember I say this now because of her. And she said, all is well. Everything is working out for my greatest good and highest self. And in this situation, nothing but good can come from it. I am safe and all is well. And this is a thing, because when I was going through my transition and I was very upset, I just remember I didn't think anything good could come from it. Like, are you for real? Like, if you knew what it was, you'd be like, how's something good? But by just saying it, I said it over and over. Then I would journal it over and over and over. And then I was like, okay, well, because God said everything works out for the greater good, I'm just like, I'm just going to trust that. Even at the time, I wasn't really trusting that. But I said, I'm just going to trust that. I kept saying it over and over again. And good came from it. Like, who knew, right? So perspective. That's what advice I would give. Hey, you're going through a transition. If you say it's going to be bad, then it's going to be bad. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, you might be a little nervous or whatever. That's fine. But it's what you say it's going to be.
Yeah.
And so if I say, well, it don't matter because this is going to turn out great, it always turns out great. Weapons can form. Yeah. They won't prosper. Yeah. I know this because I'm under the protection. So when you say all is safe, that's because you're under protection of God. So you're going to go through what you go through, but under the safety net of God. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about it working out for the greater good, I always think about, I've always had well-being. I'm alive. That means I've been protected. You know what I mean? Yeah. I probably wasn't always in a situation where I wasn't uncomfortable, but being uncomfortable is also part of transition too.
Yeah.
But I was always safe. I've always had somewhere to live, somewhere to eat. May not been where I wanted to live, may not been what I wanted to eat, but I've always had that. So why would well-being go away?
Right.
So even with this transition, all is well. Everything working out for your greater good and highest self. In this situation, nothing but good can come from it.
Yeah.
I am safe and all is well. And that's how I would look at every transition from now on.
That's great. I think, again, I agree wholeheartedly. It's about perspective and understanding that you're not going to die in that place. This isn't the end for you. This is really something that's coming to shift you to the next. And if you're going through hell, keep going.
And it's the reason you're going through it. So you'll be like, hey, if I'm going to be here, at least let me learn from it.
Yeah, and sometimes praying that, oh, God, change this. No, that's like, it's not going around it.
Right.
Going around it is not going to develop you. Going through it is what's going to develop you. And so
what am I supposed to learn? Now I just surrender and say, what am I supposed to learn from this?
The toughest things I've ever been through in my life, I wouldn't trade them. And it sounds so crazy, but I would not trade them because it made me into the version of myself I used to be for
who you are now.
Next. And so keep your hand in God's hands. Like, understand that God is not just here for us to be suffering for the sake of suffering, or
here just to be asking for things,
or going through changes just for the sake of change.
Can I have this? Can I have that?
Reason and a purpose for all of it. And so understanding there's a purpose for it hopefully helps you change your perspective, helps you to hold your mouth right. Hold your mouth right.
If it didn't go right, you didn't hold your mouth right.
If it didn't go right,
you didn't hold your mouth right.
You did not hold your mouth right. So.
Listen, I know we're trying to transition out of this, but you said something that really kind of but it's interesting. Sometimes we go through things that we don't really want to go back.
Right.
I remember the time when I was living on the back seat of my car, just making it work.
Talk about it.
Right, making it work.
And I was working every day.
Yeah,
it was just difficult.
Yeah.
Difficult. But
uncomfortable.
I'm so glad that I've learned to make some decisions that prevents me now from
Sure.
sleeping on the back seat of my
Right.
car. And I'm so glad that I didn't give up on this
In that
life
moment.
because,
Mhm.
man, I've lived such a good life.
Right.
I'm excited about.
Then retire.
You
Right.
better come on. And what I've come through and where I am today, it's an exciting time. I would not trade it for anything. And I know you know I've come through some stuff.
Oh, I was with you with some of it.
Ooh, my goodness.
We on
You
the
don't
other
look
side.
like what you've been
On
through.
the other
don't
side,
look like
and
that.
listen, and that's a blessing within itself.
Amen. You better come on.
You don't look like what you've been through.
Come on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank y'all for this riveting discussion on transition and change and how to go through it gracefully and graciously and to grow through it. Yeah, acceptance and grow through it. I appreciate all your insight that you provided. I know folks are going to have amazing things and amazing feedback in the comments.
I would love to hear.
And follow and share what you see here. You know, like and follow our Doctored Up page. And please, we want to interact with you guys. So we welcome any and all comments.
Yes, please talk about your transitions in the comments.
Yeah, share
because
about your
when we go to the next episode, we will definitely recap the previous episode, and we would like to read some of your comments. So please make sure you place them down below.
Yeah.
So in our segment, we always want to either we're going to talk about a scenario or we're going to give advice on a question that we found. And again, we're going to place our email address in the comments so that you can email us any topics that you would like us to address. And also, if you want to ask us questions, and it might actually make the episode. Mm-hmm. And so today we have a really brief one. And since we were talking about transitions and talking about jobs, this one just fits perfectly. So let me read it, and then we will see what we have to say. Right? All right. Is it shameful to leave a new job after 2 weeks if you didn't like it or if it was not what you expected? I'm planning on doing it tomorrow morning, because I'm waking up every day regretting my decision to join this company 2 weeks ago. I wasn't expecting it to be so intense from the get-go. Most of my jobs are laid back and they train you up to a month or two before throwing you into the front line. There is no probation period with this job, meaning no notice period. My new employer likes to time everything from restroom breaks, tea breaks, lunch breaks, and they throw a lot of information at you, and I'm absolutely overwhelmed, especially as I am calling up to 60 people a day and responding to calls, not knowing where to look or how to answer their queries. It's stressful. It totally was not what I expected in terms of intensity. So the question is it shameful to leave that job that you just started 2 weeks ago?
Go
ahead.
I would say it's not shameful. And this reminds me of something that came up in our first video where I mentioned something about leaving situations that aren't serving you.
Period.
And I have been guilty of staying in situations that weren't serving me, including work situations. Mm-hmm. And so typically, people show you who they are, believe them. So if it's wild like that from the jump, then it could be that it's time to move make a move for greener pastures. But I will add the caveat that, I'm at a point in my life where I ain't doing anything without asking the Lord about it, because sometimes he puts us in situations where he wants us to be, to grow in certain ways. But I don't necessarily think that that's the case there. But I think it's important to consult God about any big changes we're making, any big moves. But I have been guilty of going into job situations and knowing it was toxic and staying longer than what I should have. Mm-hmm. And again, out of fear, making decisions that are out of fear.
Worried about money.
Fear and lack. And you cannot be driven by that.
You cannot be driven by lack.
You'll just stay in situations that don't serve you.
Yeah, no such thing as lack.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned in life is even when I make mistakes, God is still there. He still got my
Absolutely.
back.
Mhm.
So it's like he knows that I'm gonna make mistakes. So
No.
he plans for those
He
things.
see it coming. I know how he gonna handle this. Let me just wait until he ready to listen.
Me?
Not you, Dr. Bobby.
Let me just wait till he ready to listen.
No. But with this, I think it was the Winans who said it.
Hmm.
Forget about tomorrow. You make that decision today.
Today. Hello.
Life is too short.
Yeah.
It really
Life
is.
too short, and you only get one shot at this.
Listen, and now,
Every day you live is one day less than you have.
right?
So listen,
Absolutely.
if you know it's not right, if you know it's not working out, forget about tomorrow. Forget about 2 weeks. You make that change today. You deserve happiness. That organization deserves who they need and want. But if it's not for you,
Mhm.
it's not for you.
Yeah.
Go make a difference. Go make a change. Make a transition. Don't waste your time, your life, your emotions. Don't pour into that if you know you don't want it. Don't do
Right.
it. That's
Well,
my humble opinion.
well, I have the luxury of saying this now. But yeah, I've been in that situation too, where where you get ready to quit a job and then you're afraid because you're like, hey, I found this job because I needed money. Where am I going to stay? I need this check to come in because the day you stop is the day the check stops, right? But I've also learned to just go ahead and leave because we're moving forward without fear, right? So I don't know if I would have last 2 weeks at this point. After 1 hour, I've been like, and do what? And who? And I done asked this question, nigga, I just start packing up. And anybody that knows me will let you know, they'll look up and be like, where she go?
Yeah.
Did she leave?
I've seen that just in the middle of the meeting, just packed up and walked out.
And they be like, and then they be calling me, I'm in the car, I'm on 85.
Yeah.
Because I just learned, because this is the thing. And I know you can look at it like, well, so like she said, God is always talking to you. He's always talking to you.
Absolutely.
And so like you pray and you see, this is the thing, got a direct line, right? So I'll be like, God, I'm about to go. And I listen.
What'd you tell him, Katrina?
God, I'm about to go.
I'm about to go.
Now, if you tell me to stay, I'll stay. Because I do have this conversation with God. I'll be like, if you tell me to stay, I'll stay, but I'm about to go. All right. Because I ain't hearing nothing. And I just have to think, when you're supposed to sit, when you're supposed to meditate, that's not my relationship with God. Like, God tells me immediately. I get the feeling, I know. Because I remember, case in point, the last job we had together. I'm sitting there, and I was like, should I stay? God was like, resign. I was like, okay, now, but I know if I resign today, this check stopped. But when God said go, I knew I had to go. You know what I mean? And I knew whatever was going to happen, he was going to work it out. So because everything works out for the greater good, I feel like whatever decision I make, we'll pivot because he knows where I want to go, right? Now, mind you, I could want to go right here and be right here. And God has a straight shot there. But yeah, I quit this job, so now I probably got to go, and that's fine. But it's still going to work out.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
And if I am willing to take whatever consequences it is in order to be true for myself and authentic to myself, then you go. And I already know, the money going to stop me. Yeah, I know it don't matter because I feel like he's going to take care of all that. That's not my work. I make decisions. God is waiting on you to decide so he can get behind what you decided. So if you decide, oh no, I'm just going to wait 2 more weeks. I'm going to see if it gets better. God be like, all right, well, we're going to see if it gets better.
Yeah.
And then you be like, well, I'm about to go because it is better. Well, let's go. Get your stuff. And I just start packing. You know what I'm saying? Because I know I'm going to get out there, start driving home, going to get an email. Somebody's going to call me. Something, money's going to come. Somebody's going to give me another opportunity. Something's going to happen because it's always going to work out. So you decide. Don't, you know what I'm saying? Don't make decisions based on fear.
Yeah.
Don't make decisions based on lack. We've all done it. We've all done it.
Yeah.
And still do in some situations. You know what I mean? But the consistency is we're no longer doing that. So that would be my advice to you. 2 weeks, good for you.
Yeah.
But go ahead and go.
Yeah.
Because I would have lasted an hour, if that.
Well, in all fairness, something similar happened to me a while back in my life, several years ago. I applied to be a manager for a major company, a national company, and was hired. And when I went in day one, they had me doing something that I, in my humble mind, could not find it connected to what I had applied.
It was beneath Dr.
That's a
Bobby.
nice way to say that.
It was
That's a nice way to say it.
Dr. Bobby was here, and it was here.
beneath me.
It wasn't beneath.
It was beneath
It was
me.
not what I asked
What did Michael
for.
Jackson say?
It was
Too low to
not
get
what
under.
they had said I was going to be getting.
Stuck in the
No,
middle.
it didn't take me 2 weeks. It took me one day. I gave him that one day. I wanted to see.
Yeah.
It was just a little 2-hour test, or
Yeah,
was it
all
gonna be
day.
a whole day?
Right, something to
And
do
what
for
am I
now.
expected to do the next day? Oh no! But can you imagine going home telling your family who were excited about you and this new opportunity?
I had to walk.
I walked out. I quit.
You did what now? You did what? Wait,
You did what now? Oh, so you got another job. That's why you quit.
Right.
Oh man.
I know.
It's interesting that I'm telling you, it's sometimes difficult, depending on where you are in your walk. But it is sometimes difficult to be able to walk out on faith. But you have to walk out on faith in order to develop your faith.
You do.
And
You
I
do.
walked out a few times.
I mean, I jumped without a parachute. Didn't even have a job and be like, oh, I resign. They be like, where you going? Home.
To the
You
house.
just have to tell yourself.
Oh, you got another
certain
job
things
lined
you
up.
can't
No, I
do.
don't.
No.
I'm
No.
just going home. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it really boils down to, do you think you can do better, or do you think you deserve better?
Mhm.
You know, sometimes it's like, okay, I'm going to sit here and, yeah, I know I probably shouldn't be washing dishes. I shouldn't be, like being a gopher for people because I'm I'm way more qualified than that. But you're like, well, no, I'm going to go ahead and do that. No, because see, to me, words like that trigger in my mind, it'd be like, abort, abort. You are settling. Is this what we're doing? So is this who you are? Because this is who you are. We can roll with it.
Mhm.
And I'd be like, well, that's not who I am. Well, let's pack up. And then that's how I end up leaving. And I know they're probably saying, well, that's a ego, this is and that. No, I decide.
Yeah.
It goes back to I decide. And since I've decided this is not good enough, it's nothing you can say is going to tell me that it is. Oh, this is for today. I'm not doing that today. Now what? Because what we've also learned is people will do to you what you allow.
Oh yeah.
And so I'll be like, I got 60 calls and you haven't given me any answers to it. Well, then I'm just going to wait. Well, why haven't you signed on? Because I'm waiting on somebody to come train me. Nobody trained me. And this is exactly what I would do. They'd be like, well, we need to get on the phone. You need to go. Okay, nothing but a word, ma'am. You want the keys?
Yeah.
You want this card? Because that's what you need to do. And then I tell you, even though they've done everybody else in that job that way, they're going to do you different.
Yeah,
because
they will.
I'll be like,
They will.
and then everybody start looking like, hold on. So we can get trained? Yeah, you have not because you asked not. So that could be another advice for this person.
Yeah.
Before you leave, ask for what you need.
Yeah.
Now, if they don't give it to you, that's different. But then they might be like, well, you know what? Listen, when you come in tomorrow, don't even clock up. What we're going to do, we're going to train you a little bit more. We're going to have you sit with somebody and shout. But if you haven't said anything,
Oh,
and haven't
definitely
spoke
clock
up,
in. Definitely clock in though.
oh, we clocking in. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Clock in.
Don't go on the floor.
Clock
but
in,
clock in.
but don't put on the headset. You know what I'm saying? Or don't pick up the phone, right? But go in, like when you tell them this is the day. So I would say maybe.
Yeah.
It's up to you because when my mind says abort, I leave. But if your mind is not saying abort, go in the next day and be like, hey, this is what I need. And if they say, well, we can't do that today, well, I'm not going to be able to work today then because it's so stressful to me. This is stressing me out. Can somebody train me tomorrow? Okay, well, then I'll see y'all tomorrow.
And what I like about that is that you're empowered to speak up.
Yeah.
Maybe this is not something you've experienced in previous roles because you
True.
said everything was kind of cake before.
People tell you how it's going to be.
You had smooth
You
transitions
didn't tell
before.
people how it's going to be.
So now this could be an opportunity for you to
Mhm.
grow. And even if the answer is no,
And it could be
you
no.
empowered yourself to go and ask.
Yeah, and I don't even consider the answer. I used to, but I don't now. I just ask.
Yeah.
If you say no, because I already know what I'm about to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need you to tell me what my options are. I know my options. So if I ask and you say no, all right, well, let me go get it where I can get it. But most of the time, when I be like, well, this is what I need, I end up getting it. And then people get mad at me because they're like, oh, this is and that. Well, I asked. I told you not to.
Yeah.
Well, I would say as you listen to us talk about these things, keep in mind that we go where our faith takes us.
Period.
Absolutely.
And you have to go where your faith takes
If you ain't got the faith to walk away, sit down and
Yeah,
eat
yeah,
it.
yeah. That's
You
why
may
it
need
has
to
be
eat that
developed
one.
in every individual.
Yeah.
You can't live off of my faith.
No.
My faith would
And
tell
I'm
me
always
one day-
willing for whatever consequence comes for my actions, what I decide to do.
Absolutely.
I'm going to take responsibility for them. Because people will look at me like, well, you should have walked off. Well, I walked off because I needed to. So whatever this is what it is.
Yeah.
Whatever the outcome, it is because I decided. I just really am big on that I decide.
Well, that was good. That was very spirited. Very spirited. A great question,
Yeah,
and first to
yeah.
wrap up with.
Yeah.
So I like the additional segment, Dr. Kat.
Well, all right then.
Yeah.
All right, we got to get a name for it. But
Ask the
that
doctor.
wasn't
Maybe
good.
they can help us. Maybe they can
What
help
should we
us.
name that segment?
Yeah,
Yes,
that was
when
name
we
our
are
segment.
giving advice at the end or just even going over scenarios and a what would you do type situation, what should we name that?
Thank you. Dr. Robbie, you want to close us out?
Well,
The benediction.
I will say,
Pass the plate.
let's pass that plate. Let's clock eat. I would say as a closer though, everything that is began with a word. You know, the Bible tells us that in the beginning there was
Word.
and the word was with God.
And the
Listen,
word
and
was
the
God.
word
Was God. There it is.
And I believe that your words matter.
Yes.
Just like God's words matter. He has placed his breath in you, and your words matter. Now, if you're not a believer as I am, I believe everything begins with a word. If you say you're going to make something, eventually you'll make it. You'll get it done.
That goes with being impeccable with your words.
Yes,
on now.
you
Come
have
on,
to be
Forrest.
Listen, because you are creating reality.
and intentional.
You are
All the
creating
time.
words
All the
and
time.
thoughts. Add thoughts to that.
Yes. So if you really want to go through transition, watch your words.
Mhm.
What do you say about the transition?
Mhm.
What do you say about your life? What do you say about what you're going through and where you're going to get to after it?
Absolutely.
Be mindful to say things that you really want. Don't let words come out of your mouth out of fear. Don't let words come out of your mouth out of hurt. When you speak with a purpose.
Don't let it be, it is what it is.
No,
it's what you
don't
say it
leave
is.
it up to chance.
No, it's what you
Call
say it
things
is.
out as
Period.
they are.
Period.
Call things out that you want them to be, even
Period.
before they are.
Yes.
Okay? That's word for you right there. That's word for you. So
Yeah.
I would say transitions, be intentional. When you find yourself in one, speak out what you want from that transition and go get it.
Right.
Go get it. Thank you guys again. Please like and subscribe. We're glad to hear from you. In fact, we want to hear from you. Remember, this is an opportunity for you to learn from us, but us to learn from you as well. So please give us a note in the box down below, and we'll be sure to read it. We'll be sure to share it with our listeners.
We are
Doctored
Doctored
Up.
Up. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.